Welcome to the Law Offices of Chris M. Ingram podcast. Today, in this very challenging U.S. immigration environment, we want to explore how undocumented aliens can make it to become an all-American U.S. citizen.
We'll go through every step and share how the co-founder of Google and many hugely successful people started out as asylum seekers and refugees.
This is going to be an epic, inspirational, and practical guide. So we're embarking on a deep dive today into what's, well, a particularly intense period for U.S. immigration.
That's putting it mildly.
Right. As of July 11th, 2025, enforcement efforts are really reaching new heights under the Trump administration.
Yeah, the scale is pretty staggering.
We're talking about a significant $45 billion congressional allocation. That's a 265% increase in funding.
Huge numbers. And that's going towards expanded detention centers, border operations, removal efforts.
And targeting an estimated 13 million undocumented individuals. It's an aggressive strategy.
And it even incorporates military involvement in these campaigns designed to encourage self-deportation through fear.
Okay, let's really unpack the realities of this situation.
Well, it's quite striking when you compare this current approach with past administrations.
How so?
Our attorney, Chris Ingram, notes that President Barack Obama actually oversaw the deportation of around 3 million undocumented individuals.
Which is more than President Trump's first term, right? About 2 million.
Exactly. Around 2 million in his first term. However, the critical distinction, and this is what our attorney Chris really highlights, lies in the methods used.
The how.
Precisely. Obama's removals were often more discreet, sometimes more humane, rarely making huge national headlines.
Okay.
In sharp contrast, under Trump's first term, we saw there's highly publicized instances, children separated from parents, put in cages.
Right, very visible.
And now, in his second term, our attorney Chris observes what some people are describing as a shock and awe approach.
Shock and awe. What does that look like?
It means individuals being removed from their homes, sometimes cars, occasionally at gunpoint, by agents in full Army-style fatigues. Our attorney, Chris, states that actions like these prompt many Americans, really across the board, to ask, is this who we are now, reflecting on the country's values?
And these observations about enforcement, they've definitely sparked a lot of debate, haven't they, across the political spectrum?
Oh, absolutely.
Back in 2014, Janet Murguia of Unauthorized NBC News reported this. She called Obama the deporter-in-chief.
Highlighting the sheer volume, even under a Democrat.
Exactly. And Democratic Representative Luis Gutierrez, according to Roll Call, used this reality to push for comprehensive reform, one that prioritizes humanitarian concerns.
Makes sense.
Then on the Republican side, former President Trump, back in 2018, he justified the family separations as a deterrent. The Washington Post quoted him saying, if they feel there will be separation, they won't come.
A clear deterrent strategy.
And more recently, 2024, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis pointed out, according to PolitiFact, that Trump deported less, believe it or not, than Barack Obama even did, while still advocating, of course, for stricter enforcement.
So it really shows the complexity, right? Different priorities, different justifications, depending on who you talk to.
It really underscores the multifaceted nature of this whole debate.
And when we look at the bigger picture, these enforcement measures, they aren't happening in a vacuum.
Right. There's the economic side, too.
Exactly. They're happening at the same time as these escalating trade wars. We're seeing tariffs, 10, 25% on global imports, even up to 60% on Chinese goods.
And the projections on that?
Well, they're projected to significantly impact the U.S. economy. We're talking potentially reducing GDP by 5-6%, maybe lowering wages by 5%, increasing consumer prices by 2-3%.
That hits everyone.
It does. And this raises a vital question about the ripple effects, especially considering the role of undocumented immigrants.
Around 14 million people, right?
Approximately 14 million, yeah. And they're a significant part of our economy. Our team's study indicates they contribute nearly $100 billion in annual taxes.
Wow. $100 billion.
Plus $254 billion in consumer spending, and they account for about 3-4% of the nation's GDP. That's around $3.3 trillion.
That's a massive contribution.
It is, and they even bolster Social Security and Medicare every year. So you have figures like Senator Martin Heinrich, Democrat from New Mexico, warning back in 2024.
What did he say?
He said mass deportations would reduce economic growth, shrink the labor force, cost U.S.-born workers their jobs, raise costs for nearly all Americans, and risk triggering a recession.
Strong warning.
And that concern was echoed by David Beer of the Cato Institute, reported by CNBC. Yet, despite these warnings, Trump maintained in 2024, you have no choice regarding mass deportations. That was reported by NBC News.
And beyond the economics, the human cost.
It's just profound.
Immense. We're talking about families living with constant anxiety, communities feeling fractured, individuals under significant stress.
Sleepless nights, chronic worry.
Physical health declining, all stemming from this fear of raids.
It takes a real toll.
And the economic sectors that rely heavily on immigrant labor are feeling severe pressure too.
Which ones specifically?
Well, agriculture, for instance. 16–20% of labor is undocumented there. Food prices could rise 5–10%.
Okay.
Construction, which has like 42% undocumented labor in some areas, could see housing costs jump 10–20%.
Wow.
Hospitality and childcare, maybe 20% undocumented workers. They could face major disruptions, fee increases of 15–25%.
So that affects everyday services.
Absolutely. Manufacturing, healthcare, transportation. They also risk widespread labor shortages. For the average consumer, our team calculated this could mean an extra $2,150 a year for essentials.
That's significant.
And mass deportations, say 8–11 million people, could shrink GDP by 4.2 to nearly 8%, eliminate 6 million jobs, including for citizens.
And fiscal cost.
Around $315 billion. Couple that with the tariffs, inflation could hit 4%, possibly sparking regional recessions.
It's a challenging picture.
It is. But, and this is important, even amidst all this, there are pathways to safety and stability. Options that uphold human dignity.
That's what we need to focus on.
Exactly. Our mission in this deep dive, informed by our attorneys and their extensive study, is to illuminate these available avenues for undocumented individuals to regularize their status.
Looking at the legal pathways they should discuss with an attorney?
Right. To transition to lawful presence, contribute openly, and importantly, we want to inspire hope. We'll weave in true stories of famous Americans who started as refugees or asylum seekers.
Showing how these protections, these humanitarian pathways, can lead to extraordinary contributions. It's crucial.
Okay, let's begin our exploration with the first category of relief options. Fear-based protections.
These are really lifelines for people escaping persecution. They don't just halt deportations, they offer hope, a chance for a new beginning.
What falls under this category?
The main ones are asylum, withholding of removal, and protection under the Convention Against Torture, which most people just call CCAP. And the human distress from current policies. It's visceral. Our legal team sees it daily. Families huddled in fear, children clinging to parents, people physically aching from chronic stress.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And beyond the humanitarian side, retaining these individuals helps mitigate those economic shocks we talked about. Like in agriculture, removing them could produce prices by 20%.
Compounded by tariffs.
Exactly, compounded by tariffs. Economists have warned about this, as noted in the Economic Times. Broader inflation is a real risk.
Okay, let's unpack asylum first. What's the fundamental concept behind it?
Okay, so asylum is designed for individuals who are already in the U.S. or showing up at a port of entry, like the border.
Right.
And they need to demonstrate a well-founded fear of persecution back in their home country.
A well-founded fear. Based on what?
It has to be based on one of 5 specific grounds: their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in what's called a particular social group.
What does that include?
That can cover groups like LGBTQ+ individuals or victims of domestic violence, things like that. It's a defined category.
Okay. And how's it different from refugee status?
That's a key point. Refugee status is applied for from outside the U.S., often from a camp or a third country. Asylum seekers are already here, and they often face a more, let's say, adversarial process within the U.S. system.
Got it. Is there a time limit?
Generally, yes. Applications should usually be filed within 1 year of arriving in the U.S., though there are some exceptions to that rule.
And who has to prove the case?
The burden of proof is on the applicant. They have to prove their case is credible using evidence.
Like what kind of evidence?
Things like their own personal testimony, reports on the conditions in their home country, maybe affidavits from experts or witnesses.
Okay, and if they're successful, if they're granted asylum?
If granted, asylee status allows them to stay indefinitely, get work authorization, and access certain benefits. After 1 year as an asylee, they can apply for a green card.
And then citizenship eventually.
Yes, citizenship is possible 5 years from the date their asylum was granted. And importantly, spouses and unmarried children under 21 can often be included or petitioned for later.
Are there challenges specific to right now, 2025?
Yes, we're seeing challenges like accelerated timelines for cases, which means less time to prepare, increased fees, and some policies that might try to direct asylum seekers to third countries.
Seems complicated.
It is. And non-governmental organizations, NGOs, play a absolutely vital role here, helping people gather evidence and navigate this whole complex process.
You finally got your family together on a H-1B. Your American dream begins. Your employer files for your EB-2 green card, but the wait is over 11 years. As the years go by, frustration grows, and now the company is talking about layoffs. This could be the end of your American dream. You search for help, but luckily, you land on breakthroughusa.com. They listened, reassured you, and built your EB-1 case with precision. Then one day, a notification buzzes, EB-1 approved. With your EB-1 green card, your entire family can breathe.
I have got my visa. I got my visa.
That's why the law offices of Chris M. Ingram is trusted. Your future shouldn't wait. Let's talk EB-1.
What are the next steps?
Need help with your visa? Book your free consultation now at www.breakthroughusa.com and let us take care of you.
To really understand the profound impact asylum can have, let's talk about Albert Einstein.
A perfect example.
He sought refuge here as a Jewish scientist fleeing Nazi persecution. Born in Germany, already world-renowned for his theories.
Theory of relativity, right.
Exactly. But when Hitler rose to power in 1933, staying in Germany became impossible for him.
Right.
He was actually visiting the U.S. at the time and made that pivotal decision not to return. He renounced his German citizenship and applied for asylum right here.
And it's just remarkable to think about the immense personal cost of that decision.
Leaving everything behind.
Everything. Friends, property, his cultural roots, deep connections. He arrived in Princeton, New Jersey, facing a totally uncertain future.
Did his family come too?
His immediate family joined him later, but many others, friends and relatives, remained trapped in Europe. He continued his groundbreaking scientific work, of course.
But he also spoke out, didn't he?
Passionately, warning the world about the escalating Nazi threats. He even helped establish a precursor to the International Rescue Committee, the IRC, to help other refugees.
Despite his own losses.
Yes, despite tragic losses, including relatives who perished in the Holocaust. He thrived here, became a U.S. citizen in 1940.
And became an advocate.
A vocal advocate for peace, for civil rights. He left this incredible legacy, including the Nobel Prize, but also his impact on scientific thought. As he famously said, peace cannot be kept by force, it can only be achieved by understanding. His journey just powerfully illustrates how providing protection to one persecuted individual can, in turn, enrich an entire nation immeasurably.
Our legal team shared an illustrative story from their work that really brings us home. Anna, a 28-year-old transgender woman from Honduras.
Okay.
She faced intense ridicule, violence from her family, from local gangs. It forced her to flee north in 2024 after a particularly brutal attack.
Horrific.
She crossed the border undocumented, completely exhausted, eventually settled in California's Central Valley. She was working in agriculture, grueling conditions, constantly afraid of being found.
And then in early 2025, during this period of intensified deportations,
It got worse.
a pre-dawn raid on the trailer park where she lived just shattered her fragile sense of security. She was roughly grabbed, zip-tied, detained.
The physical and emotional toll must have been immediate.
Absolutely. Insomnia, rapid weight loss, her past injuries flared up. But during her credible fear interview, that's a key early step.
Right, where they assess the basic claim.
Exactly. With help from a pro bono lawyer and NGOs specializing in LGBTQ+ rights, she carefully compiled her story.
What did that involve?
Photos of her scars, affidavits from people who knew her situation, country reports documenting the widespread anti-LGBTQ+ violence in Honduras. Solid evidence.
And the legal process.
It dragged on for months in immigration court, incredibly stressful. But her compelling testimony, combined with that strong evidence, it swayed the judge.
So she got asylum.
Asylum was granted in mid-2025. Her first breath of freedom, our team said, was just a profound, tearful release.
That protection must have been life-changing.
Absolutely. It gave her a chance to heal from the trauma, but also offered a clear path to permanence here. You know, as former Representative Luis Gutierrez urged back in 2014, reform has to prioritize these kinds of humanitarian needs. It shows the human imperative behind these legal protections. And another incredibly inspiring example, this one from our team's study, is Madeleine Albright.
First female U.S. Secretary of State.
Exactly. She fled Czechoslovakia as a child. Born in Prague in 1937, her family first escaped the Nazi invasion in 1939. They found refuge in England, lived through the Blitz bombings.
Twice a refugee, then.
Yes. After World War II, a communist coup in 1948 forced them to flee again, this time to the U.S. They arrived in Denver in 1949 as political refugees.
The challenges for her as a young girl must have been immense.
Adapting to American culture, learning English, grappling with a new identity, huge hurdles. And later in life, she discovered her Jewish heritage and the tragic fact that 26 of her relatives had died in the Holocaust.
Wow, that must have deepened her understanding of persecution.
Profoundly, it solidified her convictions. But she excelled academically, balanced studies while raising 3 daughters.
And built an incredible career.
Served on the National Security Council under President Carter, then U.S. Ambassador to the UN, and finally in 1997 became Secretary of State.
Championing democracy and human rights.
Passionately, around the world. Her story just powerfully shows how offering protection cultivates leaders who profoundly shape America's global standing and its values. Invaluable returns.
Okay, moving on to the next fear-based protection. Withholding of removal. How is this different from asylum? Who is it mainly for?
Right. Withholding of removal is also a mandatory form of protection, meaning if you meet the criteria, the government must grant it.
Okay, mandatory. And the criteria.
It applies to individuals who can show it's more likely than not, that's the standard, over a 50% chance that they would face persecution if returned to their home country.
On the same grounds as asylum, race, religion.
Exactly the same grounds. Race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group.
So what's the main difference then?
A really significant difference is that withholding of removal has no one-year filing deadline.
Okay. That's crucial.
It's vital for people who might have missed that asylum window, maybe because of trauma, lack of access to a lawyer, things like that.
But there must be a catch. What are the limitations?
The key limitation is that it does not provide a direct path to a green card or citizenship.
So what does it provide?
It defers deportation indefinitely. So you can stay, you get work authorization and some benefits, but it's not permanent residency.
And what about family members?
Unlike asylum, family members have to qualify for withholding independently. They aren't automatically included.
How does the process work? Is it a separate application?
Usually it's raised defensively in immigration court, often as an alternative if asylum isn't granted or isn't available. The judge evaluates the evidence. While there are bars, like for serious crimes, it can sometimes be less restrictive than asylum in certain ways.
That clarifies the distinction. So what are the practical benefits and limits, especially right now? Our team study mentioned hotel workers hiding in closets during sweeps, their pulses racing. That kind of fear.
Yeah, the fear is intense.
And the economic impact. Shortages in hospitality could hike prices 10–15%, made worse by tariffs.
Right. Well, because withholding is statutory, it's pretty resilient, even in 2025. Though, expedited hearings can make preparation tough.
So the main benefit is?
Indefinite stay and the ability to work. That provides a crucial measure of stability.
But the limitations?
You generally can't travel abroad without risking not being allowed back in. Often requires annual check-ins. It just has a more temporary feel compared to asylum's path to permanence.
So it really emphasizes the immediate humanitarian need.
Exactly. It's a safeguard for lives genuinely in peril.
Let's look at the illustrated story of Javier, 40 years old, a journalist from Mexico. His body had faint scars, old bruises, reminders of the cartel threats he fled in 2023 after exposing corruption.
Dangerous work.
In the U.S., he worked in hotel maintenance, kept a low profile. But a routine traffic stop in 2025 just escalated, turned into a nightmare. He was detained.
And the stress.
Debilitating migraines, panic attacks in detention, and crucially, he'd missed the one-year asylum deadline because of the trauma he'd been through.
So withholding was his option.
Right. His lawyer argued for withholding, using articles about his journalism, evidence of the threats, expert testimony. They successfully showed that more likely than not, over 50% risk, he'd be persecuted if returned.
It was granted.
Yes. Once granted, Javier was released. Our team described just this palpable sense of relief washing over him as he finally embraced his family.
Life-saving.
Absolutely. And the safeguard not only preserved his life, but allowed him to keep working in hospitality, helping prevent those potential wage hikes and service disruptions.
It highlights the human side. Even while, former President Trump was proclaiming mass deportation now, back in 2024, according to the Missouri Independent.
Stories like Javier's really underscore the human imperative for compassion and the importance of these legal safeguards. And thinking about inspiring examples, our team's study verified the story of Ilhan Omar.
Incredible story. Escaped Somalia's civil war as a child. Became a U.S. Congresswoman.
Born in Mogadishu in 1982, her family fled the brutal civil war in 91. They spent 4 years in a Kenyan refugee camp.
4 years in dire conditions.
She was just 8 years old, witnessing hardships that shaped her resilience. In 1995, her family finally secured asylum in the U.S., settled in Minneapolis.
And the challenges continued here, right? Learning English.
Huge challenges. Learning English, culture shock, being bullied for her accent, her hijab.
But her grandfather played a key role.
Yes, he emphasized civic engagement. He took her to political caucuses when she was just 14 to translate for him. That ignited her passion for politics.
Amazing.
She became a U.S. citizen in 2000, finished college, worked as a community educator. Then in 2016, she won a seat in the Minnesota House.
For Somali American legislator.
Exactly. And in 2018, elected to Congress, one of the first Muslim women to serve there.
And her advocacy for refugees is deeply personal.
Absolutely. Rooted in her own experience. Pushing for humane policies, as she details in her memoir, this is what America looks like.
Her rise from a refugee camp to Capitol Hill just exemplifies how providing protection can empower these incredible voices for change and representation.
There are just too many visas out there, and I don't know which one is right for us. We need to get the right advice.
Communication is everything, and I just need someone who will listen and guide me to the right visa type, and not make promises that they can't deliver.
There are so many documents. I need someone to walk me through each one. I can't afford to make any mistakes.
If I can just find a lawyer who understands my potential, I know America will be an excellent opportunity for me and my family.
Welcome to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, and we are your immigration lawyers, and we will be with you every step of the way in your immigration journey.
At the law office of Chris M. Ingram, you get a free consultation so we can understand your needs.
We don't make promises we can't keep. Our success rate speaks for itself.
Join us and access your step-by-step video guides that answer every visa question.
Their platform is amazing. There are videos that instruct you on everything you have to do. It meant we were in control and we could do it in our own time.
They couldn't have been more helpful. They answered every question that I had, and it was easy to see they were the lawyers for me.
I couldn't believe it with my busy schedule. They always had time to talk to me and put me at ease. That's what I like about them.
So go on our website and get your free consultation now, and your new life is about to begin.
Ask me.
We did it! We did it!
We did it!
Oh my God, I got my visa! Yes, I did it!
Okay, the third fear-based protection, the Convention Against Torture, or a CAT. What's unique about this pathway? How's it different from the other two?
CAT protection is specifically about preventing deportation to countries where an individual is more likely than not to face torture.
Torture specifically?
Yes. And crucially, this torture has to be inflicted either by government officials or with their acquiescence, meaning they know about it and allow it to happen.
How is the standard broader than asylum or withholding?
It's broader because it doesn't require the persecution to be based on one of those 5 specific grounds, like race or religion. It focuses solely on the risk of torture, severe physical or mental pain.
Okay. Can anyone get it?
Well, it can be granted as withholding of removal or sometimes as deferral of removal. Deferral is usually for people who might be barred from withholding due to serious crimes, but still face torture risk.
What does that status provide?
Both provide temporary revocable status. You get work authorization, but there's no direct path to a green card or citizenship, and family members have to apply separately.
How is it decided?
It's integrated into the fear-based applications decided by an immigration judge. They look at evidence like medical evaluations, psychological assessments, NGO reports on country conditions. Strong proof is needed.
Sounds like a critical last resort. What does this mean for people seeking it now in 2025? Our team mentioned transportation workers facing raids at depots, bodies tense, hearts racing. That constant threat.
Yeah, the fear is real.
And disruptions there could raise shipping costs, especially with trade wars adding pressure.
Right. Well, eligibility for SAC has few bars beyond proving that high probability of torture, so it is a critical safeguard. In 2025, like the others, expedited proceedings demand quick evidence gathering.
And it's temporary in nature.
That means ongoing uncertainty for the person. The benefits are literally life-saving protection and the ability to work. But the limitations, no family unification pathway, no ability to travel, highlight how precarious it is.
So it really underscores global commitments.
Exactly. Commitments to basic human dignity, offering hope in the most dire situations.
Let's look at the illustrative story of Fatima, 35 years old, from Somalia. Her body bore scars from torture that was acquiesced to by the government there, including female genital mutilation.
Horrific reality for many.
Arriving in 2024, she found work driving trucks. Then in 2025, a workplace sweep. Agents stormed the lot, guns drawn, colleagues zip-tied. It left her shaking, triggered her PTSD.
And in detention.
Isolation made her nightmares worse, aggravated her chronic pain. She claimed CCAT protection, presenting medical records, UN reports detailing conditions back home.
And the outcome.
A deferral of removal was granted. It allowed Fatima to return to work, tears of gratitude flowing.
Saved her life and let her work.
Exactly. This relief offered her safety, but also helped stabilize supply chains by keeping her in that essential job. It kindled hope amidst despair. You know, the ACLU back in 2014 criticized the Obama administration's approach sometimes as speed over fairness, according to their reports. They have consistently called for protections that honor human suffering. Fatima's story shows why that's vital. And an echoing example, verified by our team's study, is Khaled Hosseini, the acclaimed author.
The kite runner.
Exactly. He fled Afghanistan as a teen. Born in Kabul, 1965, had a relatively privileged childhood that ended abruptly with the 78 communist coup and the 79 Soviet invasion.
Tumultuous times.
His family happened to be in Paris for his father's diplomatic job. They couldn't return. It forced them to seek asylum in the U.S.
So they came here with little.
Very little. Arrived in San Jose, California, faced unexpected poverty. Young Khaled, just 15, grappled with profound culture shock, learning English while helping his younger siblings adapt.
High school must have been challenging.
Immensely. But he excelled academically, went on to get a biology degree, then a medical degree, became a doctor in 1996. While practicing medicine, he wrote The Kite Runner. Yes, drawing deeply from his homeland's turmoil. It became a huge international bestseller, then a major film.
And his later books also explored refugee journeys.
1,000 Splendid Suns, yes. In 2006, he became a UNHCR Goodwill Ambassador, visiting refugee camps, founding the Khaled Hosseini Foundation to help women and children.
Using his platform.
Absolutely. His works, translated into 70 languages, haven't just captivated readers. They've significantly raised global awareness about the refugee crisis. His story powerfully proves how offering protection can nurture exceptional talents that educate and heal on a global scale. Okay, let's shift gears now. Let's explore options for people who have maybe been here longer, have deeper roots in the U.S. We're talking cancellation of removal and adjustment of status.
Right, different pathways for different circumstances.
The cancellation of removal.
Yeah.
It sounds like a form of mercy almost for long-term residents.
It can be. It can potentially halt deportation and even grant a green card. But, and this is a big but, it's capped at only 4,000 grants per year nationwide.
Only 4,000. That's very limited.
Extremely limited. It acknowledges deep integration, family ties, trying to ease the anguish of uprooting established lives. But the cap makes it very hard to get.
And our team notes that attorney Chris Ingram highlighted how Trump's plan for mass deportation could have a big effect on prices, according to CNBC. Removals in manufacturing could cut output 2–3%.
And the distress in communities, it's palpable. Construction sites sometimes go silent, workers flee into the shadows, families endure the emotional bruising of hasty escapes. This relief aims to counter some of that. Now, it's important to understand there are two main types of cancellation. There's non-lawful permanent resident cancellation, we call it non-LPR, and lawful permanent resident, or LPR, cancellation.
Okay, let's start with non-LPR cancellation. Who is that for?
Non-LPR cancellation is specifically for undocumented individuals. They need to meet several tough requirements.
Like what?
First, at least 10 years of continuous physical presence in the U.S. Second, they need to show good moral character, no aggravated felonies or certain other crimes.
Okay, 10 years, good character. What else?
And third, this is the really hard part. They have to prove that their deportation would cause exceptional and extremely unusual hardship to a qualifying relative.
Qualifying relative being?
A U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident spouse, parent, or child.
And what does exceptional and extremely unusual hardship actually mean? That sounds intense.
It is intense. It's a very, very high bar. It has to be hardship far beyond the typical difficulties you'd expect from family separation. Think severe medical conditions of the relative that can't be treated back home, or major educational disruptions for a child.
So just missing your family isn't enough?
Not nearly enough. And another key point, that 10 years of continuous presence generally stops counting the moment they receive a formal notice to appear in immigration court.
So if someone thinks they might qualify for non-LPR cancellation, what's the process like for them?
The whole process happens inside immigration court. It's a defense against deportation.
Okay.
Applicants have to present substantial evidence, affidavits, medical records, school records, financial documents, to prove that extreme hardship to their qualifying relative.
And if the judge is convinced?
If the judge grants cancellation, the individual then adjusts their status to become a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder.
Which opens the door to citizenship later.
Right, after 5 years as a permanent resident. One thing to note is, unlike some other relief, family members aren't directly included in the grant. They benefit indirectly because their loved one gets to stay.
What are the challenges right now in 2025?
Well, the high application fees, often over $600 plus biometrics, expedited removals can cut short the time someone accrues presence, and of course that incredibly low annual cap of $4,000 really limits how many people can actually get it, even if they qualify.
NGOs must be crucial here too.
Absolutely essential for helping with the complex documentation and providing legal representation. But this relief, when granted, it humanely recognizes long-term contributions and offers vital stability.
So why did you choose the law offices of Chris M. Ingram as your attorney?
Honestly, they made it feel like I was never on my own.
Every time I had a question, someone actually answered. They cared.
We never felt alone. The videos felt like we had someone with us the whole way.
Every form, every question, they had a video that explained it.
It made the process so easy.
Our tutorials are designed to get you over the finishing line, and after watching them, you are reassured that you have completed that section correctly.
At the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, our mission is to support you. Our instructional videos will guide you every step of the way. So join us.
Our legal team showed an illustrative story. Carlos, 45, from Guatemala. He's been here since 2005, his body weathered from years of hard construction work.
Long-time resident.
He has U.S. citizen children. One child has severe asthma requiring constant medical care. In 2025, a sudden raid on his home just devastated the family.
Horrible situation.
He was detained, endured cold cells, hunger strikes, deeply distressed because his daughter's health was getting worse without him.
So he applied for cancellation.
Yes. His legal team worked hard to prove that exceptional hardship using the medical bills, emotional affidavits from the family. The case succeeded, and he was allowed to adjust to LPR status.
What a relief for that family.
Huge relief. Reunited, Carlos just wept. And his continued work in construction, it helps mitigate those housing shortages and price surges, potentially 10–20% caused by labor caps and tariffs.
It connects the human story to the economic impact.
Exactly. Yeah. And while Governor DeSantis noted Trump deported less than Obama, according to PolitiFact, Carlos's story really emphasizes the vital importance of family preservation in these immigration cases. Now, let's look at the other type, LPR cancellation. This is for green card holders facing deportation.
That's right. LPR cancellation is specifically for lawful permanent residents, people who already have their green cards but are facing deportation, usually because of certain criminal convictions.
What are the requirements for them? Are they different?
They are different. They need to have been an LPR for at least 5 years. They also need 7 years of continuous residence in the U.S. after being lawfully admitted. And critically, no aggravated felony convictions.
So it focuses more on rehabilitation.
Yes. The focus is often on rehabilitation, positive factors, and also the hardship their deportation would cause to qualifying relatives. Similar concept to non-LPR hardship, but often considered a somewhat lower bar to meet.
And how does the process work for LPR cancellation, also in court?
Yes, also in immigration court. It involves filing an application, presenting evidence of eligibility, rehabilitation, hardship, and other positive factors. The judge then makes a discretionary decision.
And if it's granted?
If granted, the LPR gets to keep their green card, avoiding deportation and family disruption. Again, derivatives benefit indirectly because the family stays together.
Is this pathway affected much by the 2025 policies?
Generally less directly impacted than some others, but still affected by broader concerns about due process erosion. It offers a ray of hope, a second chance, for LPRs who've made mistakes but have rehabilitated and have strong ties. NGOs often provide crucial support here, too.
Our legal team shared an illustrative story for this. Sophia, a Chinese LPR since 2015. She faced deportation for a minor theft committed years ago when she was struggling with poverty.
A past mistake catching up with her.
Exactly. Her factory job left her exhausted, physically drained. In 2025, a workplace audit flagged her record and triggered her arrest.
How did that happen?
Yanked right off the production line, handcuffed in front of her coworkers. Her mind just reeling from the shame and the fear. In detention, depression set in quickly.
So she applied for LPR cancellation.
Yes. Her legal team helped her present evidence of her rehabilitation since the offense, her strong work history, and the hardship her deportation would cause her family. She won cancellation.
Able to keep her green card and stay.
Right. She returned home with a renewed sense of purpose, able to continue her vital contribution to manufacturing, which helps offset some of the tariff impacts on output. It's interesting, Fox News reported Obama as deporter-in-chief for surpassing Trump's first-term numbers, per their analysis. But Sophia's story of redemption really inspires compassion. It shows the value of second chances for people who've established roots and shown remorse. Okay, next up, adjustment of status. This sounds maybe a bit more straightforward. What does it involve?
Adjustment of status, or AOS, is often seen as more straightforward because it allows certain individuals already in the U.S. to become lawful permanent residents without having to leave the country.
Who qualifies for this?
Typically, it's available to people who have an approved immigrant petition, usually through a qualifying family member or an employer, and have an immigrant visa immediately available to them.
Meaning no waiting list for their category.
Exactly. No backlogs, which is often the case for immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, like spouses, parents, or unmarried children under 21. They also need to be admissible to the U.S.
What does admissible mean here?
It means they don't have issues like certain criminal convictions, health problems, or previous immigration violations that would bar them. Or, if they do have an issue, like unlawful entry, they might need to be eligible for a waiver to overcome it.
So, for you, our listener, thinking about this process, what does it actually look like? Our team tells us the distress for many includes couples separated at checkpoints, hearts breaking from the uncertainty. AOS aims to avoid that separation.
Right. The process usually involves filing the adjustment application itself, often concurrently with the underlying immigrant petition, if possible. Then there are biometrics appointments, fingerprints, photos, usually an interview with an immigration officer, and a medical exam.
Can family members adjust too?
Yes. Derivatives like spouses and children of the principal applicant can often adjust status along with them if they also qualify.
What are the hurdles in 2025?
Well, things like limited parole programs that sometimes helped people adjust, increased application fees, and just generally heightened scrutiny on all applications.
But the benefit is significant.
Huge. It provides a seamless transition to a green card without leaving the U.S., granting work freedom, travelability, and that pathway to citizenship after 5 years as an LPR. NGOs are often really helpful here, especially with navigating complex waiver requirements and documentation. It's a pathway that restores dignity for people who've already built lives here.
Let's consider the illustrated story of Luis, undocumented from Mexico. His construction shifts left him constantly fatigued. He married a U.S. citizen in 2024. Then, in 2025, a raid during a family gathering saw him abruptly dragged away, his wife's cries just piercing the air.
Devastating. But he had a pathway.
Yes. Because he was married to a U.S. citizen, he had an approved marriage petition. He also needed a waiver for his previous unlawful presence, which was granted. He was able to adjust his status while remaining here.
So he was reunited with his wife.
Reunited with profound joy. And his ability to keep working helps stabilize essential services, countering those potential price hikes in construction. You know, while former President Trump called for mass deportation now, According to The Guardian, Luis's path really shows how love and established family ties can offer a route to legal residence, overcoming significant obstacles. And what's truly fascinating here is connecting this to the real-life journey of Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google.
An amazing story of refugee success.
He arrived here as a refugee from the Soviet Union and went on to literally revolutionize technology. Born in Moscow in 1973, Jewish parents. His family faced that systemic anti-Semitism, lived in a cramped apartment.
Difficult circumstances.
In 1977, his father was exposed to freer societies during a math conference, and that prompted their decision to try and emigrate. They applied for exit visas in '78.
Which was risky then.
Very risky. It resulted in both parents immediately losing their jobs. They endured 8 months of hardship as refuseniks denied permission to leave but ostracized. Finally granted visas in 1979, they settled in Maryland, with crucial help from the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, HIAS.
Sergey was just a kid then.
Just 6 years old. He adapted quickly, though, excelled academically despite facing some bullying, went to the University of Maryland, graduated early, then at Stanford for his PhD.
He met Larry Page.
Exactly. Their dorm room project, initially called Backrub, famously evolved into Google in 1998, started in a humble garage.
And changed the world.
Completely transformed how we access information. Brin's refugee roots clearly fueled his innovative spirit. He amassed billions, engaged in significant philanthropy, especially in scientific research.
His story just powerfully underscores that welcoming refugees isn't just charity. It's a strategic investment that can spark incredible progress and groundbreaking innovation on a global scale.
Let's shift our focus now to humanitarian visas and other special protections. These seem specifically designed to help victims and shield vulnerable individuals.
That's exactly right. These provisions aim to provide healing for victims of certain crimes and protect people in particularly vulnerable situations.
Our team tells us these visas often grant both protection and a path to adjustment of status, and they're vital for sectors like childcare, where shortages could raise fees by 20% if workers are lost.
Absolutely. They play a crucial role both humanely and economically. So this raises the question, what specific visas fall under this important category?
Let's break them down.
We're primarily looking at the U visa, the T visa, and the VOWA self-petition.
Okay, let's start with the U visa. Who is this designed for, and what does it offer?
The U visa is specifically for victims of certain qualifying criminal activities.
Like what kind of crimes?
Things like domestic violence, sexual assault, felonious assault, human trafficking, kidnapping, extortion. There's a whole list defined by law.
Okay. And the victim has to have suffered.
Yes, they must have suffered substantial physical or mental abuse as a result of the crime. And crucially, they must possess information about the crime and be helpful or likely to be helpful in the future to law enforcement or prosecutors in the investigation or prosecution.
So cooperation is key.
Cooperation is key. There's an annual cap of 10,000 U visas, which unfortunately means long backlogs now.
What happens while people wait? Years, maybe.
Yes, often years. While waiting, applicants who make a preliminary showing of eligibility can receive deferred action, which gives them temporary protection from deportation and allows them to apply for work authorization.
What else is required?
They need to be admissible to the U.S. or eligible for a waiver if they have inadmissibility issues. And family members' derivatives can often be included.
And what does the U visa process look like? You mentioned the backlog. Our team also reminds us the ACLU deemed Trump's family separations immoral, highlighting the kind of trauma these visas aim to address.
Right. The process starts with filing the application, Form I-918. A critical piece is getting a certification from a qualifying law enforcement agency, police, prosecutor, judge, confirming the crime occurred and the victim was helpful.
Is that hard to get?
It can be challenging, yes. Then there are biometrics, possibly interviews. Even with 2025's increased scrutiny, if approved, the U visa itself is granted for 4 years.
Gotcha.
After 3 years of continuous presence with U visa status, holders can apply to adjust to lawful permanent resident status.
So it's a path to a green card.
It is. NGOs are invaluable here, helping victims navigate law enforcement to get the certification and manage the complex legal requirements. The benefits go beyond work permits. They provide safety, security, and ultimately permanence.
Feeling lost in a maze of visa types and paperwork? Don't know where to turn? We've got your back. With clear answers and real help, we'll guide you every step of the way. Let's navigate it together. Your journey starts today.
Hello, you must be Clara. Welcome to the law office of Chris M. Ingram.
Finally, I found a law firm that will help me achieve my American dream.
At this law firm, you are important to us. That's why we will be with you every step of the way. So join us at the office of Chris M. Ingram.
Consider the illustrative story of Rosa. She was assaulted during a robbery, left with physical bruises and persistent nightmares. Then, in 2025, a community sweep intensified her fear. She hid in a closet as agents pounded on doors nearby.
Terrifying.
By working with law enforcement and getting her helpfulness certified, she successfully obtained a U visa. After waiting and then holding the visa for 3 years, she was able to adjust her status.
And the impact on her.
Her smile, once lost, began to return. She found stable work caring for children, helping prevent critical cost rises in that sector. Her journey just powerfully embodies resilience and the profound positive impact of these victim protections. Now, what's particularly impactful about the T visa is its very specific focus, right? It targets victims of severe forms of human trafficking.
Exactly. The T visa is specifically for victims of severe forms of trafficking, which includes both sex trafficking and labor trafficking.
What are the key requirements for this visa? They must be different from the U visa.
They are. First, the person must be physically present in the U.S. because of the trafficking. Second, they generally need to comply with reasonable requests from law enforcement for assistance in the investigation or prosecution of the trafficking acts.
Is that cooperation requirement ever waived?
Yes, it can be waived for minors under 18 or if someone has experienced such severe physical or psychological trauma that they're unable to cooperate.
Okay. What else?
They also have to show they would suffer extreme hardship involving unusual and severe harm if they were removed from the U.S. Unlike the U visa, there's no annual cap on T visas.
No cap, that's significant. And family members.
Yes, derivatives can also be included.
So what does the T visa process entail and what are its long-term benefits for survivors?
The process involves filing an application, Form I-914, with detailed evidence of the trafficking and the hardship. This often includes affidavits, supporting documents, maybe reports from service providers. Interviews are common.
Scrutiny still applies in 2025.
Yes, scrutiny persists, but NGOs are absolutely vital in helping victims document their trauma and experiences safely. A T visa provides immediate work authorization and access to benefits. It leads to eligibility for adjustment of status after 3 years with the T visa, or sometimes sooner if the trafficking investigation is complete.
So also a path to a green card and eventual citizenship.
Correct. The benefits are comprehensive: work authorization, access to services to help rebuild their lives, and that pathway to permanence.
Let's look at the illustrative story of Miguel. He was forced into brutal farm labor, eventually escaped with scarred hands and a deeply broken spirit. In 2025, a raid on the farm where he'd been exploited left him cowering. Agents' shouts triggered panic and he was detained.
Re-traumatizing.
Terribly. But by cooperating with authorities, bravely sharing his story of exploitation, he gained a T visa.
And that allowed him to stay.
Yes. He was able to adjust his status eventually and begin rebuilding his life. His work simultaneously helped sustain the agricultural sector against shortages and the pressures of tariffs. His story is a real testament to the power of these protections in combating modern-day slavery and restoring lives.
Now, the Violence Against Women Act, or VWA, self-petition, is another critical protection, but it works a bit differently.
How so?
VWA allows certain abused immigrants to file for lawful status independently from their abuser without the abuser's knowledge or participation.
Who qualifies to self-petition?
Primarily abused spouses and children of U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents, green card holders. Abused parents of U.S. citizens may also qualify in some cases.
What do they need to prove?
They need to show they have the qualifying relationship, like a marriage entered in good faith if they're a spouse. They need proof of the abuse, physical battering, or extreme cruelty. They need to show they resided with the abuser, and they need to demonstrate good moral character themselves.
Does it matter how they enter the U.S.?
Importantly, for adjustment of status purposes under VOI, there's often no requirement that they were lawfully inspected and admitted or paroled. This is huge for many survivors. And it also includes derivatives, so children can often be included.
What does the VOI self-petition process look like for these survivors seeking safety?
The process starts by filing the self-petition, Form I-360, with USCIS, along with extensive evidence of the relationship, the abuse, and the other requirements.
Is there any immediate protection?
Yes, once a preliminary case is established, deferred action, temporary protection from deportation, and work authorization is often possible while the petition is pending. This offers crucial immediate safety. If the I-360 petition is approved, it provides a basis to apply for adjustment of status to get a green card.
How are things looking in 2025?
Interviews might be more common, but importantly, VROA protections have historically enjoyed strong bipartisan support and tend to endure policy shifts. NGOs play a massive role here, offering counseling, safety planning, and legal support through this incredibly difficult emotional and legal process.
The benefits are immense.
Safety from abuse, work authorization, independence, and ultimately permanence, and a path to citizenship. It's empowering. Take the illustrative story of Alina. She was battered by her U.S. citizen husband, meticulously hid her bruises, endured painful retail shifts with fractured ribs from his abuse. In 2025, a domestic disturbance call unexpectedly led to her arrest, leaving her feeling completely isolated in detention.
Arrested instead of helped.
Tragically, yes, but she bravely self-petitioned under VAWA from detention, providing evidence of the annex.
And she was successful.
Yes, her petition was approved, and she eventually adjusted her status independently of her abuser. Her freedom is a testament to her survival and courage. Her continued work helps buffer economic strains in her community. Fact checks have noted Obama surpassed Trump in deportations, but stories like Alana's remind us of the individual human triumphs achieved through these vital, compassionate pathways.
Beyond those main humanitarian visas, there are other special immigration statuses and relief options, often tailored to specific vulnerable groups, particularly young people.
That's right. Special Immigrant Juvenile Status, or SIJS, is a really vital protection for certain children.
Who qualifies for SIJS?
It's for unmarried youth under 21 who have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by one or both of their parents.
What's the process? It sounds different.
It is different because it involves both state court and federal immigration systems. First, the child needs to obtain an order from a state juvenile court. This court must find that reunification with one or both parents is not viable due to that abuse, neglect, or abandonment, and that it is not in the child's best interest to be returned to their home country.
So a judge has to make those findings?
A state court judge, yes. Once they have that specific court order, these young people are considered paroled for adjustment purposes, which allows them to apply for a green card through a special category, the EB-4 visa.
Is there a wait for the green card?
Unfortunately, yes. The EB-4 category often has significant backlogs, especially for children from certain countries, meaning they might have to wait years for the actual green card even after this SIJS petition is approved.
So how does a young person navigate this complex SIJS process?
It starts with that critical step in state juvenile court to get the predicate order with the necessary findings. After that, the youth files the SIJS petition, Form I-360, with USCIS. If that's approved, they then have to wait until a visa number becomes available in the EB-4 category before they can file the final application to adjust their status to a lawful permanent resident.
What about protections while they wait, especially in 2025?
That's become more challenging. The automatic deferred action that used to come with SIJS petitions has ended. However, there might be other avenues for temporary protection. NGOs are absolutely essential here, assisting with getting the complex state court orders and navigating the immigration filings.
But the long-term benefits are huge.
Immense. Safety from harm, access to education and stability, and ultimately that pathway to citizenship 5 years after getting the green card. Consider the illustrative story of Pedro, 17 years old, from El Salvador. He suffered neglect and beatings, ultimately crossing the border alone, his young body scarred. In 2025, rumors of school raids terrified him, his heart racing, nightmares of being sent back haunting his sleep.
But he found help.
Yes. With assistance, he secured the necessary state court order. His SIJS petition was approved, and now he waits for his visa number to become current. In the meantime, he has some stability, looking forward to entering the workforce with hope, contributing to his community, and helping offset youth shortages and services.
Then there's temporary protected status, or TPS. This often comes up in the news when there's a disaster or conflict somewhere. What's its main purpose?
TPS is designed to shield foreign nationals already in the U.S. from being returned to their home country if conditions there temporarily prevent their safe return.
What kind of conditions?
The Secretary of Homeland Security can designate a country for TPS due to ongoing armed conflict, like a civil war, or environmental disasters like earthquakes or hurricanes, or other extraordinary and temporary conditions.
Does it lead to a green card?
No, this is a key point. TPS itself does not provide a direct path to permanent residency or citizenship. It's temporary protection. However, having TPS doesn't prevent someone from applying for another immigration benefit if they qualify separately.
What does it grant then?
It grants protection from deportation and authorization to work legally in the U.S. for the designated period. Eligibility generally requires being a national of the designated country and having been continuously residing in the U.S. since the date specified in the designation. Certain criminal bars also apply.
What does the TPS process involve for people from designated countries?
It involves filing an initial application during the registration period. Then, crucially, individuals must re-register during subsequent extension periods announced by the government to maintain their TPS.
What's the situation in 2025? Are designations stable?
It's been uncertain. We've seen terminations announced or litigated for some countries, affecting potentially millions, while extensions happen for others. For example, there was a partial termination for Venezuela recently. It depends heavily on the administration's decisions and conditions on the ground. NGOs play a critical role in monitoring these designations and helping people register and re-register on time.
So the main benefits are temporary safety and work permits.
Exactly. A crucial lifeline during times of crisis back home, allowing people to support themselves and often send remittances back to families in need.
USCIS is cracking down on visa fraud, and even approved cases are being revoked.
Why was my visa denied? USCIS revoked my approval. At the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, we handle every detail with care. Every form, every fact, every time.
So join us for a free consultation. We do things the right way. Let us take care of you.
Let's look at the illustrative story of Nadia from Haiti. She arrived in the U.S. following devastating disasters in her homeland and qualified for TPS. She became a dedicated nurse, caring for patients with steady hands despite her own fatigue from long shifts. In 2025, a crucial TPS re-registration deadline loomed, creating anxiety amidst increased community raids.
But she was able to renew.
Yes, by diligently renewing her TPS, she was able to continue her vital work, helping prevent medical shortages in her community and inspiring strength. It's worth noting, Pew Research has reported data showing Obama's record deportations were higher than any president before him, providing context for the long-standing debate around immigration enforcement levels.
And finally, a program many people have heard of, DACA, or Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
Right, DACA. It's important to understand what DACA is and isn't. It's not a law passed by Congress. It's a form of prosecutorial discretion implemented by the executive branch.
Prosecutorial discretion meaning?
Meaning the government agrees to defer or put off deportation action against eligible individuals for a period, currently 2 years, subject to renewal.
Who is eligible? These are the dreamers, right?
Yes, generally referred to as dreamers. To qualify initially, individuals had to show they entered the U.S. before age 16, resided continuously since June 15, 2007, were physically present on June 15, 2012, and met certain educational or military service requirements, like being in school, having graduated high school or obtained a GED, or being honorably discharged. They also need to pass background checks and not have serious criminal convictions.
What does DACA grant? Is it a legal status?
This is critical. DACA is not a legal immigration status. It does not provide a path to a green card or citizenship. What it does provide is temporary protection from deportation and eligibility for work authorization, renewable every 2 years.
So what does the DACA process look like now in 2025, and what are its implications?
The process involves submitting an application, Form I-821D, and undergoing biometrics. Now, in 2025, the separation is complicated due to ongoing legal challenges, while renewals for existing DACA recipients are currently being processed.
What about new applications?
Initial first-time applications are not being accepted or processed right now due to court orders. This leaves many potentially eligible young people in limbo. NGOs are tirelessly advocating for Congress to pass a permanent legislative solution like the DREAM Act.
But for those who have it, the benefits are significant.
Absolutely. The ability to work legally, obtain a driver's license in many states, pursue higher education without the constant immediate fear of deportation. It's life-changing for hundreds of thousands. Consider the illustrative story of Diego. He arrived in the U.S. at age 5, excelled academically, pursued an engineering degree, but always lived with that shadow of fear that deportation could end his dreams. In 2025, campus alerts about potential ICE presence sent him running, his future suddenly feeling threatened.
But he could renew his DACA.
Yes. By successfully renewing his DACA, he was able to continue his studies and work, contributing his skills, helping counter potential GDP drops from labor shortages, and fueling hope for countless other dreamers facing similar anxieties. ABC News has confirmed that Obama deported more individuals than any previous president, which provides important historical context for the long and often fraught history of immigration enforcement affecting these populations.
Okay, beyond those major pathways and special statuses, our team has highlighted several other relief options. These seem more specific or maybe discretionary.
That's a good way to put it. These are other tools or options within the immigration system that can sometimes provide relief in specific situations. They include things like voluntary departure, waivers of inadmissibility, prosecutorial discretion, and parole in place.
Let's quickly touch on voluntary departure. What is that, and why would someone choose it?
Voluntary departure allows someone who is likely to be ordered deported to agree to leave the U.S. voluntarily at their own expense by a certain date.
What's the advantage?
The main advantage is avoiding a formal deportation order on their record. A deportation order can trigger bars to re-entering the U.S. legally for many years, sometimes permanently. Voluntary departure usually avoids these harsh bars.
Who's eligible?
Generally, you need to request it from the immigration judge, show you have the means to depart, and not have certain disqualifying factors like aggravated felony convictions. The judge can grant typically 60 to 120 days to leave. It preserves options for legal return later. For instance, our team mentioned Pablo. He had a minor record, faced a raid at work. Choosing voluntary departure allowed him to plan his exit and potentially return legally someday, minimizing the long-term immigration consequences compared to a forced deportation.
Next, waivers of inadmissibility. We touched on these briefly. What do they do?
Waivers are really important. They essentially act like forgiveness for certain grounds that would normally make someone inadmissible, ineligible for a visa or green card. Common grounds needing waivers are unlawful presence in the U.S., certain criminal convictions, or misrepresentations.
How do you get one?
You have to apply for the specific waiver relevant to your ground of inadmissibility. Often you need to prove that denying the waiver would cause extreme hardship to a qualifying U.S. citizen or LPR spouse or parent. Provisional waivers are particularly helpful. They let certain people apply for and get a decision on their unlawful presence waiver before they leave the U.S. for their consular interview.
Reducing family separation time.
Exactly. The process involves a detailed application with lots of evidence. In 2025, we're seeing stricter discretionary standards applied and increased fees for these waivers. An illustrative case, Isabel. She faced a 10-year bar for unlawful presence but needed to return to care for a sick family member. She applied for a waiver, demonstrating the extreme hardship her family would face. It was granted, allowing her to adjust her status.
And what about prosecutorial discretion? This sounds like it gives the government flexibility.
It does. Prosecutorial discretion, or PD, refers to the authority immigration officials, like ICE attorneys or USCIS officers, have to decide how to handle a case. They can choose to, say, dismiss removal proceedings, agree to administratively close a case, or not even start a case against someone.
Who might benefit from PD?
It's typically considered for individuals deemed low priority for enforcement, maybe someone with very strong ties to the U.S., compelling humanitarian factors like serious health issues, or someone who is elderly. It's about focusing limited enforcement resources on higher priorities.
How do you request it?
You usually make a formal request to the relevant agency. However, in 2025, the administration's focus on broad enforcement has significantly limited the availability and use of favorable prosecutorial discretion compared to some previous periods. Take Marta, an elderly woman with deep community ties. She trembled when a routine welfare check somehow turned into an immigration arrest. Given her circumstances, her attorney successfully requested prosecutorial discretion, and her case was dismissed, allowing her to stay.
Lastly, parole in place.
Okay.
What is that used for?
Parole in place, or PIP, is another discretionary tool. It allows certain individuals who are already inside the U.S. but entered without inspection to be granted parole, essentially treating them as if they had been lawfully admitted.
Why is that helpful?
Being paroled can make someone eligible to apply for adjustment of status, get a green card, within the U.S., which they otherwise couldn't do if they entered without inspection. It's most commonly used for certain family members of U.S. military personnel and veterans.
Is it automatic for military families?
No, it's granted on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. Its use has also become more restricted in 2025. For example, Alicia, a military spouse, lived with immense fear of separation from her service member husband due to her undocumented status. Parole in place allowed her to apply for and receive her green card without leaving him or the country, providing crucial stability for their family.
So looking at all these different pathways from asylum to these more specific options, what does this mean for the larger conversation about immigration in America? It seems incredibly complex. To really drive home the potential and maybe inspire some hope amidst all this complexity, we want to share a few more true stories. Famous Americans who started as refugees or asylum seekers, their journeys show resilience, and they mirror the potential outcomes of these relief options we've just discussed. Our team verified these narratives, and they really show how protection can lead to extraordinary achievements.
It's truly captivating, isn't it, how individuals who face such immense challenges early on went on to enrich America in so many ways, culturally, scientifically, politically, just profound impacts. Think about Henry Kissinger, a really towering figure in U.S. foreign policy.
Secretary of State, Nobel Peace Prize winner.
Right. He fled Nazi Germany as a teenager. Born Heinz Kissinger in 1923, grew up amidst that terrifying rise of anti-Semitism. He experienced beatings just for his heritage, saw his family stripped of rights.
They had to get out.
In 1938, when he was 15, they managed to escape to New York. He changed his name to Henry, faced the huge challenges of new language, new culture, worked in a factory while going to high school at night.
Incredible drive.
Absolutely. His body tired, but his mind sharp. Became a U.S. citizen in 1943, served bravely in World War II as an intelligence officer. He confronted the horrors of the concentration camps, first-hand camps, where 13 of his own relatives perished.
Unimaginable.
He went on to study at Harvard, joined the faculty, then National Security Advisor, Secretary of State under Nixon, shaped détente with the Soviet Union, opened relations with China, negotiated the end of the Vietnam War. His refugee roots deeply informed his realpolitik, his approach to the world. It proves asylum can cultivate global leaders.
They said my EB1 needed more categories. I can't even dock. What am I gonna do?
I need to find the right lawyer that can navigate me through this crisis. I need my EB1 so my new life can begin. These lawyers are amazing. They are walking me through every questions, making sure I don't miss a thing. Thanks to the law offices of Chris M. Ingram, I'm cleared to land. But my career is gonna take off.
Houston. He got his visa.
Need help with your visa? Book your free consultation now at www.breakthroughusa.com and let us take care of you.
Or consider Gloria Estefan, the queen of Latin pop.
Everyone knows her music.
She escaped Cuba's revolution as just a toddler and became this global music icon. Born in Havana in 1957, her family fled Castro's regime in 1959 after her father, who was part of the pre-Castro police force, was imprisoned.
Arrived in Miami very young.
Just 2 years old. They faced significant poverty. Her mother worked multiple jobs. Her father fought in the Bay of Pigs invasion, was captured, later served in Vietnam, and came back broken by multiple sclerosis.
And young Gloria helped care for him.
Yes, her small hands helping, her body and spirit strained by these huge responsibilities for a child. Music was her escape. Her solace joined Miami Sound Machine in 1975.
And the rest is history.
Pretty much. Her Latin fusion hits top charts worldwide, sold over 100 million records. Then that devastating bus crash in 1990 fractured her spine, temporary paralysis. But through grueling rehab, she made this miraculous recovery. Earned Grammys, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Her story, told in the Broadway musical On Your Feet, it just celebrates refugee tenacity, turning immense adversity into cultural triumph. And one more, Mila Kunis.
Hollywood star.
Right. She arrived from Ukraine as a child refugee and rose through sheer perseverance. Born Milena in 1983 in Chernivtsi, part of the Soviet Union then, her Jewish family fled pervasive anti-Semitism in 1991 on a religious refugee visa.
How much did they have when they arrived?
Arrived in Los Angeles with just $250. Mila was 7, spoke no English. She's talked about blocking out second grade because she cried every day, feeling blind and deaf, bullied for her accent, her clothes.
Tough beginning.
Really tough. Her family was on welfare. Her parents' professional degrees weren't recognized here. But she was enrolled in acting classes at 9, landed commercials. Then that 70s show at 14 famously lied about her age to get the part, voiced Meg on Family Guy, broke through in movies with Black Swan in 2010, got Golden Globe nominations.
Big career now.
Huge. Films like Ted, Bad Moms. She's built a multi-million-dollar career and become an outspoken advocate for refugees. Her journey from Soviet shadows to Hollywood stardom embodies that realization of the American dream, showing how providing refuge can unlock incredible potential.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for us, for you listening? We're in this era of significant upheaval, intensified deportations, economic threats from tariffs.
Yeah.
But these relief options we've discussed, they do illuminate vital pathways forward.
Yeah, they offer hope.
And as our attorney Chris Ingram reflects, looking at the different approaches Obama's often discreet methods versus the very visible hardships under the current administration, it really prompts a deeper reflection on our shared humanity, doesn't it?
I think the ultimate takeaway from this deep dive is really multifaceted. On one hand, through these stories, both the illustrative ones from our team's work and the real-life examples of famous refugees, our goal is to raise awareness. Awareness of the profound suffering involved, the physical scars, the emotional wounds, the fractured communities.
Acknowledging the human cost.
Exactly. But simultaneously, we want to inspire hope. Hope that these legal avenues, these pathways can restore dignity, reunite families, rebuild lives.
From Einstein's science to Omar's politics.
Right. From Einstein's scientific revolutions to Ilhan Omar's political trailblazing, the contributions of refugees and asylees have just immeasurably enriched America. It proves that offering protection isn't just the right thing to do, it yields infinite returns for the country.
So advocacy and compassion are key.
They remain our greatest tools for fostering a more just, more inclusive America. And as Pew Research often notes, public opinion on these issues remains mixed, which just emphasizes the ongoing need for thoughtful discussion, understanding, and maybe finding some common ground.
For you, our listener, we really hope this deep dive has provided a clearer, maybe more nuanced understanding of this incredibly complex U.S. immigration landscape.
Yeah.
And the various pathways, the lifelines that are available for those seeking safety and stability.
Maybe think about what stood out to you from these stories.
Yeah, consider what resonated. How this knowledge might shape your understanding of immigration's profound human and economic impacts. There's a lot to think about. Thank you so much for being with us today. Make sure you follow up for the next installment of Maria's Journey.
Once again, we would like to thank attorney Chris Ingram and his team for researching and preparing this study for our presentation today. They're doing an awesome job.
You can also follow us on YouTube under Let's Talk U.S. Immigration, as we're developing a significant following there.
Please leave us a comment if you can, as it really means a lot to all the staff.
The most important thing you can do is share this podcast with your friends and family so we can continue to build this community.
If you need a free consultation, please visit www.breakthroughUSA.com. We'd love to help you or a loved one if we can.
See you next time on Let's Talk U.S. Immigration. Bye for now.